Hello, guys. This is another episode of Enter the Matrix. We are going through 8v8 pairings once again. This time we got kind of a different episode because previously we had two teams, but we realized that going through two times 8-man pairings takes a long time. So moving forward, we'll try to do it only one 8-man pairing at a time. And this time we have Team England represented by Matt. And you might kind of know him. He might be kind of famous by the Art of War thingy. And then you have, only because of Art of War, obviously. And then you have Team Netherlands guys, Florian and Dino. And we will be going through the pairings today. And guys, maybe you want to introduce yourselves. Matt,
Dino.
you go first.
Oh, I was trying to stitch Dino up there. Hey guys. Team England, selection committee, player, etc. member here, and Art of War fanboy, as Typhus says. He loves me, really. He just pretends he doesn't.
I do. It's a rough love, but like that's what you get when you live in Poland.
Shall I go?
And
I'll go.
Yeah.
Dino here from Team Netherlands. General Big Mouth. I tend to stick my nose in all kinds of things. And apparently I'm helping out with pairings now.
I guess that's me then. Florian, also for Team NL. I have the honor to be the vice captain this year and also do the pairings after somehow that went pretty well for me at ITT. And generally a Chaos boy, but now tempted by the team back into Imperium, so jamming that these days.
Cool. How was the event, by the way? I know Home Nations as an event is secretive, although the lists always end up on the internet, no matter how hard the teams try. Somehow, I don't know.
Well, I know how they got leaked this year, and it's glorious.
Maybe somebody posted it on Twitter.
Yep, one of the teams put a link on Twitter.
Yeah, so somehow, even though every year you try to make it secret so nobody will know, they manage. They still manage, which I must say I'm quite proud of and thankful because I can analyze them.
This is why we don't like them going, just for you.
Yeah. Anyway, how did you like the event? Like maybe Matt, I think you're the person who knows the most of it. Like, what's the backbone and the story of it?
So originally started off, I want to say about 13 years ago now, because I remember going to the first one, definitely legally able to drink when I was there, in Wales. And that was 5 teams. So it's England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and a barbarian team for a few years. And the barbarian team was always just kind of the B team of whatever country we were in. So we ended up inviting Belgium to get a reputable country every year. And it was a lot easier to organise. And then that expanded again to have the core 6 teams and 2 invites every year. So this year was the Dutch and the Swedes. In the past, we've had the Danish come over. We've had a few of the countries invited in the past as well. So yeah, it's 8 teams of 8 now. The rotation hosts every year. We skip Belgium at the moment because nobody wants to go to Belgium twice in a year, with the WTC being there as well. Not even the Belgians. So yeah, this year was Wrexham in Wales. And yeah,
I don't know if that's worse.
No.
Yeah. Wrexham was an interesting place. It was in a church hall on Palm Sunday, so they had to pack a lot of stuff away Saturday night, repack it up Sunday morning. They hadn't quite planned through a few of the details like that, but yeah, the Dutch drove all the train over, so that was good.
Cool. So, and for you guys, what's the story with Home Nations? Like, how you guys got invited to Florian?
I think we basically, after WTC, I think we did well, like for the first time in like forever. I think we previously, our best spot was 24th. So 8th was a slight improvement on that. And then I think I don't know exactly how it happened. I think Ruud started asking around for like maybe we can go this year, and then he got asked pretty quickly to go, and like as I guess one of the inexperienced guys, although the whole team is now full of slightly inexperienced guys. I don't think we have one or two players who played more than one WTC. Two, yeah. But we were pretty excited to go. Seemed like very good practice, even if it was pretty close to our own tournament at ETC in Amersfoort. And yeah, Wrexham was slight pain to get to at times, especially with some certain circumstances which happened due to cars and car rentals. But overall, I think the event was very, very fun and very good practice.
Can you like compare it to the kind of vibe we got at the Amersfoort one? Like that was a friendly event where you wanted to get good games in, or was it a little bit more serious than playing in a bar, drinking beers and whatnot?
I think it was pretty similar. I think we for both tournaments we basically wanted to get good practice in. For both, as a team, we were like we need to practice. We were still on the. We need to practice different armies than what we normally play because 10th is coming up and that's going to be a crapshoot. So let's try stuff that people aren't that experienced with. I think we had some differing opinions whether this tournament was more important than ETC or not, but I think both were pretty important. I think we still went there just to have a good time, but also get good practice at the same time. And we are still also integrating some new guys into the team, so it was also a good test for them to see how they went and how it goes because it's always different playing 8-man teams versus playing singles, even if it's a high pressure situation in both. But yeah, very good vibes.
Cool. So coming into the event, when we will go through the pairings, I will ask you guys, so Netherlands team, as you are two of you. First of all, how's the dynamic, right? Because I know in Team England, it's usually Matt and Josh that you were involved in the pairings at some point.
And Manny and Chewy as well when they're around.
Yeah. Like you had few guys going over there and you had Alex Harrison doing fuck all usually.
Yeah. The safest way.
I mean, that sounds like a solution that I would take when I had him in the team, but yeah. So usually there's like a group of captains, or like not maybe captains, but people who are responsible for the pairings. So you guys, how it did end up that you two are actually doing it? Were you forced? I think Ruud kind of done pairings and did all the organizational stuff previously, and he was tired of it. So what's the story behind that?
Shall I take this one?
Yeah, sure.
I think Ruud kind of zoned out because he just has a lot of other things to do for the team. So it was a bit up in the air how we're going to do pairings. I was very much interested in the pairing process and had all kinds of opinions about it. Same goes for Florian. But in the end, Florian is vice captain, so he has a bit more weight when saying things. So for us, it seemed the best solution to do it together. We have two different opinions about how things should be done, but we both have a very clear understanding that when we do it together, when we work together, it can only get better. So it's just a stupid math thing. 1 + 1 is 3, and it works.
I expected nothing less from you, Dino. And 1 + 1 = 3.
Yes.
I think we should remember that one when we finish the whole episode and how the game went, right?
No, we shouldn't.
Cool. Anyway, so let's get to it. I will share my screen now so you can actually see how you guys done your estimations. And this one is a big boy. Like looking at those tables, when you previously we had like a set format, but I decided to not change it, not align your estimations with the set format we had previously, because I think it's actually interesting because you guys take a different approach. We had people asking questions like, why you do not take into account table choices as much? And I see you guys also done it kind of different in a way that allows to include the table choice. So can you run me through how you guys do the estimations? What was your idea behind the team composition? And then only we'll get into the pairing. So I want to understand what's your thought process when you get the team and do those tables.
Right.
I think we basically went in terms of. I think I'll start with team composition first. We basically went. Let's try and figure out at least the top 5 or top 6 armies in the meta, and make sure we have counters for them. We did that as well as at ETC. So we basically, before list selection, basically made a list of all the factions, all the things we could basically possibly play, and see do we have counters for the most meta stuff. Previously at ETC, so basically, can we counter Custodes? Can we counter GSC? Can we counter Guard? Can we counter Bolt Eaters? And can we counter Dark Angels? Was basically the things we wanted to be able to do. And we basically had the same approach for ETC, but then we found out basically pretty early on in pairing prep for that event that we don't really have something for Dark Angels. So, and then we adjusted some lists from there. I think Ruud went from Orcs to Eldar specifically to help us in the Dark Angels matchup. And then we had another switch in terms of just also player preference. And the one player, we also had one reserve player coming in, and we basically wanted to kind of protect him, or basically put him in a position to succeed. So we gave him a pretty stable Necron list, which didn't really follow the general counter philosophy, but would allow us to basically have something we can throw into a lot of stuff and still get somewhere between 8 and 12. So that was the general thinking. Basically, figure out what the meta is, find counters for it, and make sure we include those in the team. And in terms of how that actually ends up in the pairing table, this is something that we do have active discussions about. Do we just do colors? Do we just do numbers? And we ended up with a combination of both now. And the reason why we ended up doing numbers is because we get a better count as soon as the pairings are done about what are we actually predicting we're getting, and do we need to push yes or no. Whereas that was more difficult with purely colors, because then you end up with a too wide of a range. And it's also what also was an advantage for us in terms of why we put in the numbers is that we found that it's tricky for players to assess whether something is like a 15 or 15 plus, and that's a big gamble to take psychologically, or step at least. And so we basically wanted to open up the opportunity to put in the 15, which is still a green, to make that step a little bit less far, so we could actively pair more for, okay, if we lose here, then we can get a 15 here. So so our sacrifices are more intentional. And then in terms of attacker defender, that's mostly like if you're playing, for instance, say guard, then whether you pick a table or not is very important. Um, so allowing us to put in both the attacker and defender scores allows us as the pairing duo to see, do you need a table, yes or no? And that helped us quite a bit. You do see, as you also see in this table, I think, is that a lot of times the scores are still pretty similar. So that's still something we want to figure out whether we still want to use or not. I do think the general tendency is at the moment that we will use it. But I think that's a general. So in summary, it's general philosophy to find counters and basically build a team for that, and then give the pairing duo as much information as possible regarding, do you need a table, yes or no. So you have information about whether you want to use that as first defender or whether you can leave it late. Whereas some people like Dick on Chaos Knights and Clayton on Siege Demons are like, I don't really care about table at all, so we can leave those more too late. So I think that's our general philosophy, I think.
I have a question about that. Where you're saying defender, just yes or no, do you factor in the tables as well there? Because obviously certain armies want certain tables more.
Basically,
Yeah.
if you go defender, that means you need to pick the table. And we didn't send it to Typhus, but we have an extra sheet where people can sort their tables per mission and round.
Yeah, so generally speaking, as defender means you have table pick. It's basically what the score in the pairing sheet means.
Okay, and color coding, I think, as you guys also have it written down, can be quite straightforward for the viewer to understand. But to give a quick rundown, the pinkish color is like you get a huge win, like the opposing.
Pink or purple is 15 plus. Green is 12 to 15. Yellow is like drawish, so at 8 to 11. Orange is 5 to 8, and then red is below 5.
And black is like a roll off.
Black is mirror or don't know. Usually,
Okay.
we basically say that basically only use it for mirrors, because we did find that if we did discuss actually having a don't know, but we were like, yeah, but if we end up with like 5 don't knows, then we don't know what the hell we're doing into pairing.
Yeah, I think if you give players chance to input don't know, they will abuse it.
And then it's more work to fix it and go through as a team. Okay, what are these matchups? Let's go test them.
Yeah, we use don't knows only before the event to find out what you need to prioritize in testing. And that's the reason to have don't knows. But yeah, I think your approach doesn't differ from the other approaches that we've heard about. I think that's kind of straightforward. And maybe let's get through this whole not team composition, but pairing. But before we do that, just a quick reminder for those viewers who do not know it. 8 wins means that you cannot have any army in the team twice. What that means is you cannot have 2 times Space Marines. So no Dark Angels and Space Wolves, no Dark Angels and I don't know, Imperial Fists, whatever you want to bring, and no combination of Craft Words and another army of Harlequins. You can have only one of those. So there is a certain limitation, but other than that, you have 8 armies, and then you go through the pairing process. But we'll see the pairing process unfold now. So how did you guys go through with your first defender into this match?
Want to take this, Dino, or shall I?
Yeah, I can do it. Looking at our team, we have 2 free list players where we think they can score high. That is Ruud on Eldar, Dick on Chaos Knights, and JC on Dark Angels. So we kind of decided that we need to wait out with him because England is a group of a lot of good players. So we'd rather take out our trash, our bad list, bad players out first, give England a couple of wins, but brief the guys like, look, any point matters. So later in the round, we have our good stuff, which will hopefully get good pairings and give us an edge. Looking at a guard player, there wasn't really anything great going on for him in this round. So we decided
you are playing Scouring also, right? I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
This is a mission that tends to change estimations a lot.
Yeah.
Certain armies become way better on this mission.
Yeah. For clarification, once we're sitting on a table, I don't generally look at the mission or anything what anyone tells me. I just look at the colors. That's it. I have no mind space to take in more info. I'm just working what's in front of me. Meaning that our guard player just didn't look strong in the pairing, so we decided to put him on first, and whatever he gets is good with us.
Yeah, we did know for home nations the missions for the first 3 rounds and opponents as well, because it's preset into little groups, similar to how WTC is now. So we've all had time to make sure the matrix was for that mission.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Do I just do the Dutch defender also what England did?
It's enough if you just say what they put in. So you guys went with guard because the your guard doesn't look great, which if you highlight it, it's worth highlighting. It really doesn't look great. Like you have
we have no
use. 4 bad pairings, and it doesn't look great. Yeah. And
England did the same thing. They also put up guard first.
Yep.
But yeah. And what was your thought process now?
This was, in our mind, really good. We know Nassim is really good, but he's playing guard. And one of our best players, Christopher Clayton, he's playing Zinch, which really, really blocks guard, usually. And we also had the idea that our Necrons player, Rob, could at least get a draw out of it. So that was easy pickings for us. We put up Necrons and Zinch against their guard. And the sweet chaps from England gave us also Necrons and also Zinch.
Very creative.
Great minds think alike.
Smart play. Cool. I agree with your decisions.
So what did you guys take?
Our guard took
Crons,
and their guard took Zinch.
And what's the story behind taking Crons, not Zinch?
Basically, he told me he could get a green. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, and I think we had Zinch down the line was also better for us than Crons. We felt like we had some, like our one bad Zinch matchup was actually guard, and so we felt like we could get more later in the round with Zinch.
Okay.
And but basically it came down to can you get a green against Crons? And he was like, yes, probably.
Okay, so looking at the cleaning up the estimations, why is your table not cooperating with me? Oh, thank you.
It's probably I probably set it on conditional formatting. Oh no, never mind.
Yeah. So
that's good.
So from your side, your estimations were you get around the 10 with guard as defender against Necrons. And you have I don't fucking know. As
no, we have green against.
Yeah, that was a small one.
Yeah. Right. I can copy it. Here's guard. Yeah. So you had small win as well. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think tables matter that much on scouring. That's my hot take. Like they matter a little bit, but they are not as much of a great deal when it comes to other deployments. So I don't think you have tables, or you actually might do.
Yeah, we do, but let's see.
You may have done one. I don't know whether we would send it over.
Cristiano,
So
Dark Player, picked 6, and Nassim
And-
picked 8.
8, which is notoriously the shooty table on WTC pack.
No.
So moving forward.
Yes. All right. We have 2 armies less. Still wasn't looking great, so we took out. We used another trash bag. That was me. I went second defender, and England started using good lists, and they put up Eldar.
Okay. So your only logic was that you didn't have good matchups.
No.
And you had no use, so you wanted to leave out the good armies into last 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hoping to get some of their good lists and get some points.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, they gave me their worst. 2 newbies. They gave me Josh on Custodes and Robbo on World Eaters. And we put, I have it here, Chaos Knights, which is a really good counter for Eldar, we fought, and Necrons, which also failed fine against Eldar.
And what did you go with War Eaters? I agree with the craft, those 2 armies into craft words. I think that's correct. But what did you go with your War Eaters?
We had a kind of a discussion about this because both matchup felt kind of the same for World Eaters, but I was in the belief that we could get potentially more against World Eaters. So we took World Eaters. In hindsight, I think it would have been more beneficial to take Custodes because we had better matchups for World Eaters later in the round and not so much for World Eaters. But that's thinking afterwards.
Yeah, this was a tricky one because like World Eaters should be like 10-10, but it ends up being, in practice, it actually ends up being a win on both sides. I think we find by now, but both with Dino winning because we have played this a bunch of times now, but we absolutely know that Custodes should be bad and World Eaters should be a draw. So then you end up with, let's get our points here instead of getting them later.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tricky, especially that World Eaters mirror is every single time both World Eaters players say it's a 10-10. I have never seen it become a 10-10.
I think it's probably more like a 12-8-ish because you're going to get a little skew either way on average.
Yeah,
maybe that,
one
but I also
player
haven't
takes
seen a
the
lot of
board.
12s.
Yeah, I think one player takes the board and the other needs to dig him out. So
Yeah.
Cool. You guys then England took your, as we
Necrons.
said, Necrons.
Yeah.
So they dodged the Chaos Knights, which were, I think you guys have them even more designed to kill Eldar with nearly all chain cannons, right?
Yep.
And Havoc launchers. So it was like a skew to kill armies like GSC or Eldar.
Yeah, this was one of those armies where we specifically before the event went, okay, we need a counter for these armies. Let's build our Chaos Knights to counter those.
Yeah.
So
at this point, I was feeling pretty good about the pairings. We got rid of our weakest players, and it wasn't any orange or red.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy. I knew Dick has some good plays into the coming matchups. Same for Florian. Custodius looking okay. Um, yeah, up until this point, I was like, okay, this is looking good.
Yeah, so I basically was thinking the same. Like Manny was one of those looming clouds, which like that's gonna hurt us somewhere. But I think we get uh, at least two good matchups now, and one probably bad one. I think I literally wrote down in our parent sheet beforehand. Is everybody scared of Manny, or just is or Space Wolves actually busted? It's probably a bit of both. Um, so yeah, I think yeah, based on what we had as pairings, I think we were pretty happy with how this went. Um, and then I think the debate was here: do we put in Chaos Knights as third defender, or do we put in Custodes as third defender?
I think
Uh,
this step is always, I don't know what's your take on it, Matt, but I think it's kind of roll-offing. Like the last four can be random.
I think you can engineer it a little, but yeah, you do have that. Oh, what are they going to
like
do? Are
no
they going to do
matter
this? Going to do that?
no matter how hard you engineer it, there's always one counter into what you do. That's my
Oh, yeah.
experience.
yeah,
So, and there's not much you can do if it just happens to be the only way you didn't want this to go. So, that's the thing that a little sideways
yeah.
discussion. That's why I liked how way back in like fifth, sixth, and seventh we used to have champions. I don't
That
know
you
if
pick at the
you're.
start. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I prefer, I think, the way it's done now, because it used to be you have one attacker on defender and they play. Having the option really helps the defender just not get pulverized.
Yeah, but
the way
you
the
could
game
have
state
still
does.
done it. What I mean, you still could have done it with having one champion from the very get-go.
yeah.
Like, and
You're
but it would still kind of be random at the end. So
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
basically introducing game theory when you're doing third defender and champion.
Yeah.
Like I know that you know, and all that jazz. And I think we basically went, okay, they're not gonna put up GSC as third defender. They might put in Eldar. No, sorry, they might put in their Custodes, but they probably want to pick it for Wolves. So, and that would leave us with a very good Chaos Knights matchup. So, therefore, we put in Custodes, but you're also definitely making an estimated guess. But what your opponent is putting in as third defender. I think the other reasoning is you put in Chaos Knights, so so Chaos Knights can most definitely avoid Space Wolves. But that's also iffy. So we ended up going with Custodes because it has a bit more play into both, and Custodes is pretty likely to be able to pick what's best for the team as opposed to what's best for what's best as opposed to doing something like Chaos Knights, which has to pick away from something. So that's why we ended up going with Custodes, I think.
Yeah, my reasoning was a bit more emotional and not logical. Um, I was really vibing on the feeling that either Manny or Mike will go champion. Um, so I'd rather just hold the course, throw out the trash, and see what happens. Um, so I was a strong voter for Custodes because it couldn't really go wrong, and I'd rather have still our three best players in the end process just to make things harder for England.
Yeah, this is also definitely a yin yang dynamic
Yeah,
and why it works.
yeah,
Yeah, looking from the table, if you expect either Space Wolves or GSC to be in that last spot. Usually, you need to engineer it in a way to defend with something that GSC cannot attack into.
Yeah, exactly.
And then leave something into that last spot that can play into both those armies, whilst not hindering your potential of 2 attackers in the next step, which is usually it's not doable. Like usually one of those requirements cannot be fulfilled, and it's not so straightforward. But when you say that you wanted to go with Custodes as a defender here, I think it's kind of contradicts the idea that you knew that Space Wolves and GSC would be in the champion pool.
No, what we were basically, if it was GSC, then we knew Wolves would be the champion. So you can put Eldar as our champion. And if they put in Wolves, then we know GSC is probably their champion. So basically, we're exploiting the fact that they have to put down their third defender first before they put down their actual champion.
Okay.
That was basically the reasoning.
And how did it go this time?
They put down Space Wolves.
They put down Space Wolves.
Which I did not see happening.
Yeah. And they put demons and custodies into us, into our custodies. So either custodies mirror or scenes demons. And Wolves was tricky for us. But it also meant that we were, although there was some very good bluffing going on the England side, we initially thought they were putting down GSC as champion then, but England started bluffing a bit with their, we're putting GSC into this, and then talking to Mike Porter a whole lot, but then ended up putting them as champion anyway.
Not taking the bait, boys. I'm not taking the bait.
You say bluffing, that's just something the team really needs to get better at. Like, we're sat there with the matrix going, oh, this person, what do you think? I'll say names instead of armies. It's like, numbers. You're like, oh, well, look, cool. We've just said Eldar on this. It's like rather than 7 and 8.
Yeah, that's something that
think on in teams.
If you look at our estimations, we either use Polish names for armies, which you cannot understand. Like, trust me, you cannot understand those.
I might take a Polish course.
Or we use the names of the players, like actual names. And if you have 3 Michals in the team, like, who will fucking know?
Also, you go by your nicknames, like, most of the time, so nobody knows your actual first names.
Yeah. So there's a way. And I think that's actually important when you are a country that needs to speak in the, like, common language, like English, to have a way to deal with it, because otherwise the other team might get some intel. I don't think usually it matters, but it's something that you need to be aware of, that you might spill information. Even when we are, like, I don't know, I can speak Spanish, so whenever we played Spanish people, I could still understand them. So it's something. I mean, even if I don't know the language, I insult the people. It's just my way of living. But it's a good note. I think it's something that you should be aware and maybe find a solution beforehand. I can imagine for you, Matt, when you have more new players or people who tend to be a high beast like Nassim, it can be hard to handle at times.
They're normally not too bad because they just stay away and go, cool, right, here's your table, here's your army, you go do your thing. The Matrix is normally a little bit alien until you've kind of played a couple events with it, and it makes a bit more sense at that point.
There's definitely a line here between confusion and being secretive, though. If you start confusing your own players, then that's way worse than your opponent having gained a shred of information.
Yeah, true. Cool. So what did you do into Space Wolves?
We put in... Sorry, go.
Yeah, we. I wanted to protect Chaos Knights because that felt really good in the end. So we gave him Dark Angels and Eldar. Uh, we knew it was going to be a bad matchup for Dark Angels, but we didn't believe in the free. We was hoping to get more out of it, and we were also hoping Ruud to get more out of it than that he has written down.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're basically like Elder Custodes is good for us. Custodes Demons is good for us, and then we likely have a good champion. Because we were pretty sure that Wolves would take Dark Angels. So it's a bad one. It's a bad individuals pairing, but it does leave like 3 good pairings. So
Okay, so you Florian as Castos, you took Tinge.
Yep.
Mani took Dark Angels.
Mm-hmm.
So the final matchup was Craftwords against Castos.
Custodes. Yeah. And then we were very happy with GSC against CK.
So let's unfold what happened. So you had Chaos Knights into GSC as a huge win.
Yep.
We can assume it's an attacker at this point because you have no clue about table.
Yeah.
At this point in the process. Custodes against Sinch, which you had as a small win.
Yep.
And then you had Dark Angels against Space Wolves as attacker, not really great, but as you said,
bad loss.
You guys knew that you are bound to lose to that army. So someone will take the bullet at some point, and there's not much you can do. And
it's just the tax you have to pay against certain teams. It's same with Belgium. I mean, the whole team is shit except Liam. So you give Liam a 20 and you can beat the rest of the team.
Yeah. I mean, that's a way you can also look at it. I mean, from the estimation, this looks great. Let's not get into how the game went before we see the other side of the estimation and approach, how Matt looked at it. But do you have any takeaways like from this point? I assume you guys were happy.
Yeah,
Job well done.
Yeah, we were pretty happy. We were very, very happy with GC against CK. I was a bit iffy on guard Crons, but I was like, yeah, that's. I think our own player had it down as a green, we had it down as a yellow. World Eaters can be swingy, but it's not bad. That most definitely not. And yeah, we were pretty good into this. We know overall England are generally speaking better than us. So we were like, okay, this in terms of pairings, that went well. Let's get if everybody gets their points, we're good.
Yeah, looking from estimations, I would assume you guys were like at 85, something like this.
87 apparently.
Which I love seeing those numbers because whenever I hear a team use the actual scores, it's always off by like a lot every single time.
It's 87 plus minus 10, I think. But
yeah. From my experience, I think if we plus minus 30. So
yeah, I mean,
it works both ways. It works with
we weren't going
well.
out of the pairings to say we need to push this hard and otherwise we don't win this. So yeah, generally speaking, we're pretty happy with this.
Okay, so we have this little part done. Do you have any feedback on your side, Matt? At this point, what guys were talking about?
The only thing I'd say there is how do you find looking at all the attacker defender next to each other? Is that at all confusing, or do you just get used to that as you do it game after game?
I think we're used to it.
Yeah, we got used to it. We had a row in between there at a certain point that we had 3 rows, which would have the actual table, and that we were like, okay, we cannot see everything on the same screen anymore. We need to remove a row here. Yeah, it is a ongoing debate whether we want attacker defender or we want something else there. But generally speaking, in terms of overview, I think it's fine for both of us.
I think this point, when you say that it's a lot of information to take in at one point, it's interesting to see that WTC rule that you cannot use any external help for pairings. When you actually look at it, you guys had what, 16 columns because 8 armies, both choices. Then you need to include table choices. When I've tried to code down software for this, I ended up in so many combinations that it doesn't actually work that well, because there is like estimated time of calculating all the possibilities like 18 hours if you, not optimized, but like and it means that you need to have every input on every table as like that's truth. If it's off, if it's off by like 2 points, it needs to go again. So when I've done it, it was a pain because whenever my players would change their one estimation because they played one game and they knew that it changes, then next round, well, I cannot have this software ready because it takes a day. So yeah.
We tried it last year too, and there was some help. I think we tried it at Lines of Convenience to software it. Then we had like the best possible pairing, which is also very unrealistic. And even that was very buggy and took about an hour to run.
Yeah, I don't think that's... No matter how I understand WTC stance, I don't think this would be a problem quick with how human reliant those algorithms would be.
You're also screwed over as a human if somebody changes their pairing last minute. So in terms of that, it doesn't change.
Yeah, true. Matt, maybe you want to go through the idea how you guys do the pairings. I've changed your colors. Sorry.
Yeah, I was looking at this going, this makes some sense to me, but it's
so
the other way around.
First of all, I want to note 2 things. So here we have England as rows and Netherlands as columns. And why am I talking to Matt like this? Because they actually use their players as column choices. They are the first nation that I saw do this, but I'm not surprised they drive on the left lane. Like, they are just weird. But that's one thing. And they also use completely different color coding than any other team. So, for example, they have, what was it? Yellow as a good matchup.
Yeah.
When nearly everyone uses it as a draw. So, like, I translated their estimation. Sorry, Matt, you'll have to deal with it. But I think users, it's better for the users to, viewers actually see everything in a common schema rather than having it completely different.
Yeah, we tried a few different colors over the years for like good, bad draw, but then found if you switch between Excel, Google Sheets, mobile sheets, etc., we needed 5 colors that just stood out from each other. So we found sometimes the oranges and the reds looked very similar. So, okay, we need to get a little bit of definition there, which is probably why they're a bit weirder to your eyes.
I mean, it makes sense. I just wanted to pinpoint that there is a difference, and that's actually something that before every single one of those episodes, we need to clean up the estimation so it's common thing, because every team approaches it differently. But moving on, Matt, how did you guys go with the team comp? What was your choice? Like, were you limited by players, etc.?
So we weren't too limited by players. We knew certain players wanted to play certain armies. We knew we wanted like the meta in there, and then there was a few curveball ones. Like we seriously considered Votan, but I just said no, I'm not playing it. If someone else wants to, cool. I've had enough. I'm bored of them now. I'll pick up something else. So basically, but if we'd been set and like we need a Votan army, I'd have maybe reconsidered that. But at that point, we were like, maybe we do Votan as an 8th option. I was like, nah, I'm good.
I think with Votan, their issue as an army is in the team. They kind of need table.
Yeah.
And they have direct counters, even on their table choices. So,
yeah.
So that's a huge issue. And as an attacker into a dense table, they are not as effective.
No, they kind of get locked into doing a role that guard want to do by bringing lots of guns, shooters in, lots of stuff.
And being worse at it.
Yeah, basically. So it's like if the other team also has a light army and we have a light army needing, and then the Votan just kind of get a bit stuck. So like, okay, let's just leave that for now. But we did consider that and a couple of other options. So it was more what we had and who we had available as well to go for certain armies.
So you didn't go through like finding out counters. You just went, let's take best armies and figure it out. I know you took Chris as Necrons as a direct guard counter. That one I know.
It was kind of, it wasn't so much we took the Necrons as a guard counter. We took tweaks to it to help the matchup.
Yeah.
But we were probably going to, he's been playing Necrons for ages. He's very, very good with them. Kind of like you guys have got your pro Necron players over there in Poland. So it's like, okay, he's going to play that army. If you think it can play this, make a couple of tweaks to be better in the matchup and then just go from there. And then the Zinch Demons was kind of, there's some armies with lots of shooting. Gives us a nice option versus potentially Monster Mash Demons or Slanesh Combat Demons.
Yeah, like it didn't have great estimations, but it filled in a role that you could, for example, attack guard with it, which is really important.
Yeah, if you know lots of teams are taking shooty army to go early defender, take those light boards, you have to give yourself an option.
Yeah. Okay, so, and basically looking at the armies, one that I'm curious about the choice, why Space Wolves, not the other like Iron Hands or Dark Angels?
So that you'd have to ask a bit more detail into Manny, because that was a very, very last minute swap. I'd actually gone to bed when that swap was made for list submission. Because we were waiting up to submit lists, still waiting on a couple of lists. I was like, right, I'm going to go to bed. Someone else get those lists in. So that was a last minute changeover. I think he just felt it was a stronger army than the Dark Angels. And a lot of teams, if they're prepping for Dark Angels, lets us, oh, okay, yeah, this is something different we're potentially not prepped for.
Okay.
Especially because he was prominent using the Dark Angels at several events beforehand as well. So a little bit of a curveball.
I know the question, like, I know the choice between Dark Angels. I think Iron Hands with the addition of Desolation Squads grew on me a lot because that army is damp. But anyway, let's not get too deep into that. What was your logic when doing the first round of pairings?
Guard has lots of guns. Let's get it on a table where people can't hide.
And it's interesting now that you look at it. Nassim had very positive matchups, whilst the Dutch guard had mostly negative ones. So like there is a completely different approach to it. So you guys defended with guard. Netherlands also defended with guard. And it's worth mentioning now, I think, with Nassim out so early, you had two estimations, two colors that you used as a purple. I used the gray one here, that you guys are not sure about certain matchup.
They're ones where, okay, yeah, if we go first here, we'll get a win. If we go second, we could get a loss. The game has too many variations to be reliable on a score. Like 1 or 2 dice rolls could flip this. So we kind of put that in as a oddball standout color. Like if we get that in predictions, we say, okay, that we expect to get like a 3, but we could just as easily get a 17. Because it's one that the game could flip either way. Like a guard mirror match. If you go first and kill 4 Russes, yeah, the other player isn't shooting you back at that point.
Yeah. And you have Nassim Green, right?
Yeah, so that's a special color he added just to go, yeah, my game will be done in 45 minutes. Yeah. Because he likes his quick games at the moment.
So you knew they defended with guard. So what was your choice? We kind of know it by this point, but
yeah, we knew the Necrons and Tzeentch Demons had good play into guard. So we're just like, yeah, off you go. Those two were joking before the weekend started. That I think Nathan, our Tzeentch player, was like, I'm going to have to play guard loads. I said to him, you won't, because if someone gives you a choice between Necrons and Tzeentch, they're always choosing the Necrons. So I think he played guard 4 out of the 5 games.
And once it was Chris, right?
Yeah.
So both of you guys chose Necrons at this point, and I think it makes sense when you
the
also
guard
look at
picked the Tzeentch.
Your guard picked Tzeentch. Yeah. I think it also makes sense when you look at the table. If you can use demons early here, it's beneficial because they do not have great matchups. Other than that, like you'd rather it cockblock an opposing great army than later get only a yellow into army like say demons or chaos knights where you have few good matchups.
Yeah, basically, if it goes then, great. We don't have to worry about it later on as well.
Yeah. So you got Necrons into guard. And what was the other? Tzeentch into you.
It was the demons into our guard, so F18.
And Nassim had it as a green.
Yeah, so he had it as a small win. We did question that with him. He's like, yeah, I'm confident. I've never lost that matchup. I've always got at least a small win. So we just let him go for it.
But that's then Nassim and not the specific matchup, right?
I think it's him with that matchup. We basically say, okay, if you think that's a win, go and prove it. Like, if you've played it enough times and you're confident, show us. Like, we probably would have had it as closer to a draw, but he was happy. You could prove us wrong with that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I think this is also a good approach when you have those training events, like home nations, etc. Those are events that you can make your players prove themselves, and that's just a valid approach.
It didn't hurt us too much either way in the remainder of the Matrix if he took the Necrons or the Tzeentch there. So we're like, okay, it's not a big negative somewhere, so let's go with it.
And like Necrons was a yellow, so like a draw.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
So next defender there was the Eldari, just because they don't really care. They've got good matchups. They don't have anything bad. Let's stick them out and let's just go through the motions with them a little bit.
Yeah, I think they are counters into, like, if you look at the table as well, you counter only Custodes and Word Eaters, which you kind of, like, into Custodes, you didn't have awesome matchups.
No.
So, yeah. But, like, if anything, it was either them or Space Wolves, or maybe your Custodes to dodge Dark Angels.
Yeah,
but
I think
you guys fought like Eldari had bigger advantage of choosing the table, having the table choice? Because you surely knew that one of the attackers would be Chaos Knights.
Yeah, so it's like if that like drawy game there happens on the Eldar choice of table, when there's more tables left to choose from and be beneficial, that's helpful. If that happens later on, where there's only like 2 tables left to pick from and they're both a bit rubbish, that could be a worse result there.
So the idea was that you had more tables to choose from at this point, and that's why you chose Eldars over other potential defenders, because looking at the tables, you had few potential defenders that made sense.
Yeah, that's the safer one because the tables assist it a little bit there.
Yeah. And your Eldar were attacked with Chaos Knights, and what was the other army?
Necrons.
Yeah. I have it open on the other.
Yeah, and then the World Eaters, so a screenshot here, was Custodes and World Eaters.
And run me through why you chose those 2 matchups. And why I'm asking, it's because there's something in the Matrix that was surprising to me. You have Josh as a win against World Eaters, and your World Eaters
as a loss against Custodes.
Yeah.
Which is right, because they were both saying the Custodes win.
Yeah, cool. I misremembered something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so why those 2 attackers then? Obviously, Custodes, if you think it's a win, that's straightforward. But World Eaters, why did you decide to go with a mirror into an army that knowing that you do not have Eldari at this point? You had option of mirror or playing GSC into them. Or space.
So we kind of went the Custodes, we know is a bad matchup. So if they want to take it, cool, we get points. And they have draws against a lot of other stuff on bad, so they're not really amazing everywhere else. And the World Eaters have a couple of draws, a couple of bad matchups. And if you have a choice between a drawy game, maybe a small swing to one player or another, or a good matchup, well, we're either going to get rid of some crap from the Matrix or we're going to get some good points.
So you decided, and you wanted to leave money for later, I assume.
Yeah, there's no point putting that in there because the Custodes does the same thing against World Eaters, but it takes away more stuff from your later rounds.
And also, there's another layer that Custodes cannot score really high unless opponent helps them, whilst Space Wolves can easily score very high wins. Yeah. And World Eaters are a great army to actually block points. Okay. So you went for a mirror. And the Netherlands went for a mirror, and you guys chose Necrons.
Yep, just with the Chaos Knights being iffy, the Necrons is safer, and we have more matchups into Chaos Knights after that as well. It gets rid of the one bad from the Necrons as well, potentially.
And so Eldari gets Necrons, and then you have the World Eaters mirror, which you played against Dino, right?
Yep, that was a good fun one. World Eaters mirrors are so funny to play because you're just like, right, we just score secondaries. Maybe there's like a 3-point difference somewhere there, and you just pick units up one after another. If you can manage your CP, it's great.
So, and now is the point of pairings that you need to figure out all the possibilities. So how did you guys approach it? Like, I can clearly see when looking at the table that you had a clear weakness into Dark Angels.
Yep.
So how did you guys do it now?
We basically look at that and go, cool, Space Wolves doesn't have that weakness. If we get that option, it gets rid of all the bad matchups and we just end up positive at this end. Apart from potentially the Demons and Custodes. But there's no point just giving an army up where they can go, like, you couldn't go Demons because it has 2 bad matchups. Like, and the Space Wolves, because they have a lot of shooting in that, board choice is a little bit helpful. it's a lot of combat still, whereas the other armies, like your GSC doesn't care about tables, your Custos don't care about tables, Demons care a little bit, but not really. So it's the only one that had a benefit there as well.
So you decided that if they defend with Dark Angels or anything, you just feed them and that's all. There's nothing you can
when
do
it's 3
about
out of 4, it's like if we give them Space Wolves and something, they'll just take the other.
Yeah.
So it's probably it's guaranteed a bad matchup anyway, unless we risk championing both. But then you mess up 3 of the pairings to gamble on one,
which is not the correct choice.
No.
And in a way, you engineered that Chaos Knights will always be in a champion role if they do not defend with them at this point, which is what actually happened, right? Because when you saw Castodes, I assume you already knew that they knew that you had Space Wolves here, so they probably wouldn't attack with Chaos Knights.
So the discussion that Dino Florian referred to before when we were chatting with Mike wasn't so much of a, oh yeah, let's do this. It was a, wait a second, let's look at this table. Because he had down the GSC beating the Custodes, and we all looked at it and went, that's not right. We don't think that's right. So we basically had that chat. He's like, yeah, it's fine. It's like, do you know it's fine or do you think it's fine? He's like, I think it's fine. Like, yep, that's not happening. We're not giving them that option.
Especially on Scouring, I think.
Yeah. So we basically
Scouring makes it way different. Like, you have no way to work around Custodes.
Yeah, we just looked and went, okay, if that's an amber, then the GSC has an amber into Dark Angels and an amber into Custodes.
At this point, you decided, like, literally, this is during this pairing, you changed this one color.
Yeah.
At this point, okay.
Yeah. We have trust in our players, and then we get to a point we go, are you
wait a minute.
No.
Yeah.
And so, based on that, we just went, okay, if they take the Dark Angels in a champion slot, cool. We're probably getting an amber anyway. If they Custodes we know are down, let's just get rid of them. Let's put those, because the Demons and what's the other one there? Custodes both don't care too much. So we'll protect the GSC, just keep them out of there.
So,
and yeah, if they put the Chaos Knights down, because they probably go Space Wolves and something.
Yeah. So like this way, you either got a good pairing on Space Wolves or on GSC.
Yeah.
And that's only thing that you kind of cared about to get one potential high win.
Yeah, if we can not take a bad matchup here, or take 1 bad and 3 good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come out positive as a whole.
So they attacked with Dark Angels, and what was the other army?
Craft World.
Yeah. And so the last step was Chaos Knights. And I think this is kind of straightforward. You had only bad matchups into Dark Angels.
Apart from 1. Yeah.
So there is not even a second thought into what you're doing. Like, neither your Custodes or Demons cared much about Eldari. So there was no actual choice when it came to those 2 matchups. So it made sense to just straight up pick up Dark Angels and not even think about doing something else. Whichever one you end up here with is irrelevant. So Custodes took Zinj, and here you had
the Craft World's on the wrong one there.
Yeah. So how does it look when it comes to your estimations? So you got your Custodes into...
So going down the list, Guard and Necrons was, if I convert to numbers, like a 13.
It's fine to use colors only. Like,
well, the colors we kind of use as like So a small win would be 12 to 15 kind of thing. So they do have a numerical conversion. We just don't write it all in just to avoid having too much data there.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that's a
let me find the
green.
message I sent to you.
Yeah, that's a green.
I had that down as so green. So it's like a 13-ish. The
you had guard into Necrons as your Necrons had it as a
it had
draw.
It as a draw, but it's probably more likely a small win from experience.
From my experience playing Necrons into guard, it's correct. I think like the worst score you get is like 9.
Yeah.
You work northwards of 9. Then you had your Eldari into Necrons, which you estimated as a draw, maybe something else. Mirror, which is 12-8 for one side.
Yeah. So it's more or less a draw because you can't guarantee until about turn 3 which way that's swinging normally.
You need to table Word Eaters in 3 turns to ensure that you get more than 12.
Yeah.
Usually. Dark Angels into Space Wolves. So that was a win. Then you had your Castodes into Eldari, which was a draw. And then you had your GSC into Chaos Knights. So now that if we can copy the predictions for... So we have Netherlands predictions and England predictions. Yeah. So how did it end up? And we'll go through the games themselves. Because I can see you both thought that like Guard Necrons should be a draw.
Yeah, so that one ended up as a 18-2 to the Necrons.
Yeah.
The Guard
and the Guard. You both guys had it as a win.
Yeah, it was a 15-5 to the Guard.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's see.
Yeah, you might want to put the England column to the right of the Netherlands, or the other way around.
I'm not an Excel expert, so forgive me.
Yeah, so that was
218,
515.
Yep.
The Necrons and the Eldar was a 12-8 to the Eldar, so an 8-12. That was a 5-15.
Yep.
Ouch.
The Custodes and Siege was a 8-12. That was a 14-6. Sorry, 6-14.
Yep.
Our Custodes was 8-12.
Yeah.
And the last one was a 0-20.
Cool. I like there's few estimations where like I would say Word Eaters. That looks like you guys had the same idea in mind. You had way different overview of Tinge versus Guard, and way different overview of Chaos Knights into GSC. So maybe you guys want to walk us through what happened, what were the games, or why it ended up like this.
Okay, if we start with the one I think that was the biggest swing, which was the GSC CK one. I think Mike Porter killed 4 of Dick's Knights turn 1 and 8 turn 2, and then had to kill the last one turn 3. We did not think GSC had the firepower to do that. Those are famous words, I know. But yeah, we had that because of all the chain cannons, because of all the havoc launchers. We thought that was very good for us, and that definitely turned quickly. And that also, I think, had a slight escalation effect because that also, once we knew that, we also realized in a lot of tables we had to push. We also already knew that guard Siege wasn't going great. So then we
So
have
those two matchups you knew were going badly very early, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think the GSC game finished first out of all the games, while most were on
Yeah.
like turn 3, probably, if that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So having those early scores in does help the flow of the team. So I think on the early predictions, we were small wins, like a tight, could easily get a draw here. And then as results start to come in, it took pressure off the English guys, put pressure on the Dutch guys a little.
Yeah. Yeah, we had I think both our Eldar, our Crons, and our Custodians, so me, we were all like, okay, let's try and push. And I think all three were like, ended up finding we can't really push in the matchup, or we got punished for pushing. And so all those were 3 estimates of a 12, which all into 8s.
But you say that it was like a snowball effect because you needed to push and it didn't work, right?
Yeah,
Because like looking at the scores itself, it looks like all of the games went off, but it was partially because you had to do it.
And don't know entirely for the Crons game, but for me and Reed, it definitely was that case. Like Reed and me both tried to push. I pushed slightly to my own game. I pushed slightly too early, and I find out, and then the 18 Flamers did cook me up slightly more than expected. So yeah, I think that was tricky, and I think this was one where there was one. I think the Chaos Knights GC was the one big snowball, and then overall player skill, we just lost some tight games. Like the games where I expected 10s or 12s, we ended up getting 8s. And yeah, so I think that's what mainly went wrong. And both of those first defenders were like our guard into Crons was we expected draw and didn't work out, and Siege into guard we were very favorably and also didn't work out. Plus all those 12s turning into 8s, and then you get a pretty low score for us in the end.
Okay. Any other takeaways?
We got smashed. Felt good.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it's England. They're all good players. I still think some of those estimations aren't bad. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think CK has a good matchup into GSC.
Not a 16 though.
Okay, well, that I can take.
Yeah, I think it depends on the build as well for the GSC.
Yeah,
Because if they have more bigger guns, it can be tricky.
Yeah, you guys had tracks in it as well, right?
Yeah, rock grinders.
Helps a little bit.
Yeah,
It helps a little bit.
the heavy seismic cannons. Okay. Zinch into guard feels good for Zinch. Didn't expect this. Yeah, and all the other ones, the 12s. I mean, it's 12s. It could also be 8s. Yeah, and I think our first two defenders, like Florian said, we expected more from guard. We expected more from world eaters. But yeah, it was a rough round.
Yeah, I think World Eaters we knew that was swingy, but both the first defenders were like we brought Scene specifically into guard, so you expect that's a good matchup. And yeah, we somehow slightly underestimated how well you could tool Crons for guard. I think that was an oversight in terms of prep, where I think we basically brought two Crons players in both Dick and Rob, and so that was one where there's just not enough communication within the team about is this pairing actually correct. That's an improvement point. But yeah, and then basically you against the likes of England, we as a team we don't need big swings. If we get a big swing down against a team of the caliber of England, we're kind of screwed. Unless we get a big swing ourselves, which we just couldn't manage to get an actual play.
I think talking to Chris after his demon game into the guard was quite interesting because it had a lot more sentinels than he'd played against in the past, which as soon as they started getting in, is like, oh, there's actually some combat in this army. Uh-oh, this starts to get hurt a lot more than I'm used to here.
Yeah.
I think also into the guard Necron matchups, I think Scouring is a great mission for Necrons because you do not need to screen out as much the Barbican Key Squad, etc. You can just play your game and you can deploy the sight on your own board edge and be like 40 inches away from the opponent. And you can just tie up the 1-2 units that can hurt the scythe in that turn, and then suddenly they have no answer for those Scorpex disembarking next turn. So
yeah, that's fair.
Unless they do the order that you cannot disembark, obviously, but that's guard. You have nothing to do about it.
Yeah, guard do guard things.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. Cool. Is there like anything else that there's a takeaway? Obviously, this event kind of doesn't matter because we already know that the new edition will be played at WTC. So I think all the secretivity and trying to hide anything doesn't really apply here. Maybe there's something you want to talk about, like training-wise or anything that you wouldn't normally because new edition is coming in, but here you guys actually tested something. Like maybe Matt, you guys didn't swap armies. You chose whatever the player was playing with, right? Whilst the other teams try to test out new things on players and see how fast they can adapt.
Yeah, so because we've got the team picked for the year, we ensured that we were picking players that could adapt and were playing enough games to do something. So like there's a couple of lists there, like World Eaters I picked up for that event. I'm going to drop after the event. There's a couple. Ramsey picked up Eldar for the event. He's going to drop it again afterwards. So there's a few who would jump in around a little bit, but then there's a few that are like, okay, this is what you want to play. We're not going to go too crazy and testing different lists or concepts because we know 10th is coming. It's all going to change up anyway. But let's get the newer players into stuff they're comfortable with. So it's Nassim's first 8-player teams at that level. We've done one locally because I ran one myself in November last year. So he was on that. But it's kind of a different vibe there. Yep. So getting the newer players used to the Matrix, used to how.
And I think Chris is kind of new as well, right?
Yeah, Chris as well. So like Chris, Nassim, and
Vic wasn't there.
Vic wasn't there this year, but he is on the team. It was just get used to the format, get used to the environment and like the pressures as well. Cool. You're going down first defender. You've got this pressure to do this. Get the differential play because a lot of the guys do singles and the UKTC singles a lot over here, which doesn't help at all because it's just you win by a point, great. A win to win doesn't matter. The mindset changed to, okay, I could make this play and it scores me 5 points, but then my opponent scores 4. That doesn't actually gain me anything here. Whereas in a singles, you might need to get 99, 99, 99 to make the top cut in an event, etc. In a teams, yeah, I will trade an objective for an objective, or I just won't. And it changes the game style completely, especially when your opponent's not trying to win the game. They're just trying not to lose by much. That can make it even harder to win.
And don't you think that might be something that, for example, impacted Nas's estimation for one? Like you have those people who played only singles, basically, like Nas, right?
So he has played, I think this is his third team event with England now, because we have a lot of local ones. So he's kind of got some reps in there and he's got a good 40k mind to adapt to that. Because when you're looking at the Matrix, it's not just, oh yeah, I beat this. It's how much do I beat this by? And we have a couple of little breakdowns. So it's easy enough, especially because we all get together and have discussions, etc., to kind of taper that mindset in. Because he did play, or when I was chatting with him, he was playing differently to a singles event. Because it wasn't just, right, I'm done in an hour, I've scored 94, don't care what they've scored. It was, his games took longer because he had to think about the stopping the opponent.
Denying
the
points.
Yeah. Not much longer, but they took a bit longer.
Sounds like Nas.
Yeah, and with the looming 10th edition, how do you guys feel about it? Like, I know, Matt, for you, it's like third time you have new edition at WTC. So
yeah, so back in 5th to 6th ed, we didn't change.
That was us.
It was great because you could prepare for 6 months and know exactly what you're going into. But then you kind of like, I don't want to do this practice games in the last month leading up to it.
And nobody wants to play those games with you.
No, when we flipped to 8th ed, it was a bit of a shit show. We had people throwing their armies in the bin after the event because the Razorwing flocks had tripled in points before the event even started. And the rule of 3 came out about a month after the event. So we didn't really play 8th edition. We played 7.9. It was just it was a little bit messy. So I worry that this year could be the same. Like whoever spots the nonsense first gets an advantage. I'd prefer to have going into it like 6 months practice and knowing everyone knows everything and it comes down to player skill and list design. But it is a bit crap playing an old edition. Like as soon as those 10th rules drop anywhere, no one's going to look at 9th. So it's exciting to have that new edition, and I just wish it was like a month further back to get the little balancing out the way. But the game's kind of a nice reason to go. But even if I wasn't playing, I'd be there anyway for the social. Yeah. So we still get that, which is all good.
You guys, Dino, how do you guys look at it?
Yeah, I was saying at Home Nations that this would be my last weekend of 40K until 10th edition. Everything sucked. It's going to be horrible. I hate 40K. All doom and gloom. And then
that was just game 3.
Yeah, I was on Stats Check Discord. Innes said something smart about player skills being transferable between editions, and you don't win games by knowing stats and such. And now I'm playing 3 TTS tournaments, and I'm waiting to go to the next tournament. So yeah, I'm a happy camper. Always been. I'm looking forward to it.
I think a lot of the core rules like target priority, movement, decision making,
risk management.
Yeah.
And that's also why I'll probably be sticking to World Eaters. As you know, I've been playing Tau for most of the time, and I'm really enjoying learning new interactions in the combat phase and extra movement. So yeah, it's I'm happy.
I would compare the playing new edition and having the transferable skills to something that's kind of common in chess. Like you have people who just memorize certain board states, so they know what's the solution in like a smaller board state, like 4x4 on the chessboard. Like you know that situation, you know how it works. You have something internalized into you, and I think after playing at ETC for what it will be it's my 5th edition at ETC, something like that. A lot of the skills and things you learned in the previous events, actually, I do think they transfer. There's a reason why same players stay on the top usually.
I think in terms of players, I think it will be fine. I'm mostly worried about like 4 Storm Ravens or 4 or 5 Storm Ravens, with 4 Storm Ravens being the solution, because then you got to go first. I don't know exactly how that story went, but something like that.
The solution was 3 Storm Ravens with Dreadnoughts and Devastators inside, so they have less drops.
Yeah, less drops. Yeah, like as long as we don't have that, and as long as GW doesn't publish like, here's how obscuring works 2 days before the event, I think it will be fun. But if that happens, it's gonna suck. But it will suck for everybody, so we'll just have to adapt.
I think what Matt said about the edition change and people having to find the certain solutions, when you compare it like beginning of 8, we weren't so digitalized. Like 40K wasn't so much in the media back then. There were no stream houses, there were no coaching services, etc. So I think it will not be as much of an issue because most of the content will be shared anyway in some way, shape, or form. Maybe there will be every team will find one or maybe 2 armies that other teams didn't figure out, but it still is a case at a normal event. Like every team, even if you had a prep like the previous WTC, like every team had like a small different approach, different army that none other team took, and that's normal. So I don't think it will be as prevalent issue as it was before because of how the social media works.
Yeah, you match this little combo that works great into this specific matchup for teams because the world is looking at singles and as a majority.
But like, it's what you do anyway, whether it's a new edition or not. So I don't think it will be as much of an issue. Cool. Thanks for the talk, guys. I know it's quite early for you guys, and I have to grab Anthony from the airport in 40 minutes. So
leave him there, make him walk.
I don't think he wants to. You guys want to do some plugs before we end? Like maybe superior coaching services or anything like that, Matt?
Go check out Art of War. They're the best.
If you want to know stuff about the Dutch meta and all the bullshit that we pull off, listen to Amsterdam Wargaming Podcast, run by our teammate Chris Clayton.
Oh, actually, if you do not know Chris Clayton, he's like the most banter, I don't give a shit guy.
Yeah,
he's a lovely dude. So yeah, that one I might actually listen to then. I wouldn't listen to you, Dino, but to Chris, yeah.
Nobody wants to listen to me.
Right. I will also mention for anyone in the UK, I do run the Northern Warlords, and we have 3 team events a year, 4 players and 8 players. So go check out that page. We've got a couple of spots left for 4 players in summer, which will be one of the first 10th edition team events, I think. And then 8 players. That is a triple check. It's in July. It's the 15th, 16th of July at Element Games in Stockport. And then we have an 8-player teams on the 4th and 5th of November, which tickets will go on sale probably shortly after this goes live.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining in. I probably should do some plugs in, but they are so scuffed when I do them. So if you are interested in stat check, you can always look at our website. We do other podcasts like XN1 and the usual Tuesday show. We have coaching service. I'm there so Ines doesn't feel alone. So you can check him out and make sure that he makes a living out of helping you push plastic soldiers.
Don't forget thanks for listening. Patreon. Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon. So you can shit talk with Dina on the Discord a lot. Yeah, that's basically what happens there. Thank you very much for listening, and see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.